it's like, it's the only place I'm ever been involved with y'all.
What is the time frame on that they're saying now?
As early as 2 p.m., May through 5 to 7 p.m.
I got to drive back to Knoxville. That's why I was wondering. Who wants to keep me for the night?
It's coming from the west, you know, so you
I just get in front of it.
I'll be like one of those storm chasers going the wrong way.
All right, Mark, I have news. You're on.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. I'd like to thank Cengage for being here. A couple of quick reminders, and then I'll sit down. This is really a functional type presentation, so please, no questions and no answers regarding cost. That'd be appreciated. Also, we have a script with various sections with specific times. Try to stick to the script as much as you can. Please don't go off conversation if you can. Questions are fine, but just keep in mind they've got certain times they've got to stick to stay with the script. With that, I'll sit down and thank you very much.
Perfect. I'm going to pull up one thing
Here, and then we will get going. Alrighty. Let's see. Do we have confirmation that the people that are streaming in can hear me?
Yes.
We do? Perfect. Okay. Let me do this. Perfect. Alrighty. Okay. My name is Angela. Oh, I got to stick over here. Keep me. Just be like over there. It's like my Vanna White audition or something. So, my name's Angela Swider. I'm a customer success manager for Cengage Learning. Up until December, with the launch of Cengage Unlimited, which I'm going to discuss briefly, I was aligned with the states of Tennessee and Kentucky, doing a lot of the, and Shelley, I know I've worked with you before, doing a lot of the on-campus training, implementation, and working alongside the learning consultants to make sure that we're having a seamless experience, specifically with integration to learning management systems, D2L, eLearn, whatever you want to call it here. I have some guests with me today that will get the mic swap once they're called up, but Stacy Powers is our Executive Business Development Director. She specifically works with, at the institution level, regarding inclusive access that you may have heard buzzwords about in the past, and some schools that are able to actually execute that. And then Mark Santee is here. He is the product director over WebAssign, so he hails directly from them. He's worked with them since pre-merger and continues to partner with us and Cengage to make that transition. Specifically today, that was our introductions right here. As far as the agenda review goes, we covered, this is an actual live picture of my busted bracket. Don't know how many of you guys follow the NCAA tournament. I did have Michigan State winning it all. So this literally was a screenshot I took because a lot of what we want to talk about, and specifically regarding our platforms and Cengage Unlimited, is the traditional publisher model. And without using the word busted, I guess, it's a model that could definitely use some fixing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with Cengage Unlimited and try to stay away from the pricing in that regard, which I haven't had to do yet, so bear with me. We're going to talk about the ancillaries. I'm going to hand out some folders. I made them specific for the institutions that I know are represented here. For those of you in YouTube land, I will follow up with you electronically to make sure you have all those, but we will be going through them via the computer as well. We're going to dive into WebAssign for math specifically. So for those of you here interested in the math portion, Mark's going to get up and talk about that. I'm going to actually go over the MindTap for English portion as well. We'll spend some time talking about support and implementation, how our support systems work, what resources you guys have as faculty or for your faculty in that regard. We're going to revisit Unlimited, see if there's any specific questions in that regard, again, without talking about pricing. And then we'll just dive into any outstanding questions in regards to the platform. So just so you all know, we're actually going to be looking at 2 separate platforms. So in regards to the actual regimented agenda, we'll go over Unlimited as a whole. We'll dive into WebAssign for math. We'll dive into MindTap for English. And then we'll come back together for the implementation and support piece, since that, again, is one solid entity. Any questions before we get started? OK. I'm going to actually start with a video on Cengage Unlimited to kind of give you an overview. Has anybody heard of this yet? Please, somebody raise their hand. Has anybody heard of it yet? You have, OK? And you've heard of Cengage Unlimited. Either of you from Northeast State? OK, perfect. So Michael was there on Friday. OK, perfect. So Cengage Unlimited, and again, I might have to cut the video short or fast forward through part of it when it talks about the pricing, just because in general, what it encompasses is when I talked about breaking the model, it's breaking that traditional model, OK? Think Netflix for textbooks. All of these students nowadays have grown up in this Amazon era, this Netflix era. And what we've traditionally done is this pay-by-course model. This is revolutionary, first of its kind, super exciting. And I like to think of it, like I said, almost like, think about Blockbuster. I mean, even when I was in college, I'm going to Family Video or Blockbuster and renting my stuff. They went out of business. So we are adjusting the model of how this works. This is a student option, nothing that the faculty has to adopt per se. But again, this will give you an idea. And watch me work the not pricing part. But this is all public information. It's nothing proprietary.
This is Anna. Like every college student, she gets learning materials for her courses each semester, buying or renting them for each class. And let's face it, they are really expensive. Or worse, she doesn't buy them and is immediately at a disadvantage in her class. It's clear the system is broken, but students like Anna repeat this unpopular ritual every semester. Until now. Designed specifically to lower costs and improve access, Cengage Unlimited is the first of its kind subscription for a wide selection of high-quality course materials. It's truly unlimited, all-you-can-learn access. Anna now has total and on-demand access to the full library of 20,000 ebooks and 2,300 digital learning products that Cengage has to offer, as well as online homework and study tools, all for $119.
Pause. Move forward. Here we go.
It still costs $119 flat price. Cengage creates trusted learning materials that are used in nearly every college in the United States, including leading digital learning platforms like MindTap, WebAssign, and SAM. When an instructor signs on a MindTap or another Cengage digital learning platform, she gets access to an award-winning product proven to boost outcomes and increase engagement. She can even get a free pre-textbook rental for just the cost of shipping. Cengage Unlimited is a tool for all students. Even if a class doesn't assign Cengage materials, unlimited access to tens of thousands of ebooks helps supplement any course, from writing term papers to studying for a final. And those ebooks can help Anna expand her horizons within and beyond her major. Browsing the library in Cengage Unlimited can guide Anna to future courses she wants to take, or even just learn about something fun, like modern motorcycle technology. Stay well-rounded, Anna.
I'm going to pause it there in case they revisit that price point, which I was trying to avoid again.
So again, I think if you haven't heard about this, either as a faculty member or as a department head or chair, you will. I know that the learning consultants are working to get around to make sure the information is provided to you in regards to this, because again, it is something really new, exciting, revolutionary. Any questions about that right out of the gate? Yes?
So you're talking about an inclusive access model built within this platform.
Okay, so think about inclusive access, I would say, is like a pay-per-view. Okay, so you're like thinking about per course. This is more Netflix subscription based. So this would be multiple courses across the catalog. So if a student essentially is taking more than one Cengage course, depending on what the cost of materials is, they would just be able to pay that flat subscription rate, okay? So think of it that way. Instead of pay-per-view, which is inclusive access, which we do offer, which is also included in this program, think of it that way versus maybe what we've done in the past at that pay-per-view, pay-per-course level. Does that make sense? Yep.
So this seems like a very obvious answer, just to verify.
Great.
Those 20,000 ebooks
Uh-huh.
are Cengage books.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep, those are, exactly. So we're going to dive into the folders that I'm going to hand out here that are, right now I made one per institution that I know is represented here. I'll obviously be following up with you guys electronically so that you have all these documents that way as well. But inside of those folders, I thought it would be beneficial. It actually lists the courses that are using Cengage materials so that you can actually look at that at a macro institution level. So let's just pass these out right now. Sorry, I'm coming over here for 1 second. Go ahead, Stacy. Here, I'll like roll call here. So we've got Chat State in the house. Dyersburg representing. Motlow, right next to her. Perfect. Nashville State, there's Shelley. Northeast State. Okay. And then we've got some extras for those of you. Did you get Walter State?
Oh, no.
Walter State's here. Ha! I was like, I know him. I know Chris.
I'll get you on 1 second.
Well, I was going to say, oh, yeah, pull the Walter State stuff. Okay. So while we're all kind of looking at this together, I wanted to point out just basically what I included in these ancillary folders, because I think each of these things is going to be relevant to what you're going to see today. And for those of you, actually, you know what, Stace, use this one, and I'll just pull them electronically as I go through them.
I think you took it.
Yeah, I did take Chris's on purpose. Did you put his Walter State in there, though?
I don't know. No.
Okay, check these. Find Walter State.
Missing.
There should be two. It's good. You got plenty of time. Plenty of time.
We can give you one with all of them. Yep.
Yep.
I'll start to go over here.
Perfect. And like I said, for those of you remoting in, Thad, I think you're out there, I will get them specifically to you all as well after the fact. Okay, so what I want to do, without getting too much in the weeds, I don't want this presentation to be all about Unlimited, even though it is awesome and exciting and we could spend the whole time talking about that. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about specifically what's in there. So I already mentioned the information about Unlimited. If you're with a specific campus, you've got, like I said, that's just real data as to what's happening on your campus right now. And again, student choice. Some of the other things that I've specifically gotten here, and I'm going to stick to the generic stuff, and then I'll dig into some of the platform specific. Let's see, so behind, on your right-hand side is going to be English specific. On your left-hand side is going to be some generic and some math specific. But again, for the sake of those joining in, we do have people on remotely, right? Okay, perfect. Talking to nobody out there. You're here. One specific ancillary that's in here, if you want to go through these with me, is our Cengage LMS integration. I know I've worked with most of the admins on campus around Tennessee, specifically with our integration pieces, making sure that our building block is enabled and all the stuff is flowing seamlessly. There's information on that and specific information in regards to all the different platforms on that. And it's a two-sided document that talks about our partnership. So if you guys at any point or TBR were to re-up their RFP for the learning management systems as they did a couple years ago, just so you all know, this is compliant with Blackboard and Canvas as well. I'm going to slowly just knock through these here. Accessibility, obviously been a hot button in Tennessee for quite a while now. Here's a document specific on accessibility. I'm really proud as a company with what we're doing with accessibility. Not only is everything moving into HTML5 as it should be and away from Flash, we have worked with basically every campus across the state regarding the conformance forms and VPATs and everything that we've had to do in the past. But there, again, is just some additional information regarding accessibility, because I know it's always very important. When we get into some of the service and support piece, I'll actually go live into this website. TechCheck is something that's really near and dear to my heart. We've invested a ton of time and money into really opening up the transparency with our platforms. And again, this really lends itself to what we're going to talk about a little bit further on in the agenda in regards to that service and support piece. But TechCheck is a website, just techcheck.cengage.com. Basically gives you real-time status in 12, 24, or 30-day intervals in regards to platform stability. So this not only covers, basically how it was explained to me by our chief technology officer is there's little bots that are throughout the company that are going in and actually running system checks throughout and actually completing assignments. And so, like I said, I'll show you this live. For me, being in a position where I worked with a lot of faculty on escalating technical support issues, handling class-wide issues and things like that, this really helped with like the technological dog ate my homework excuse. A lot of times I would get a forwarded email from an instructor saying, I hear rain. Here comes the rain. Okay, great, that's recorded. So going back to this, so basically a lot of times I would get a forwarded email from a student that says like, MindTap is broken. Instructor's like, hey, is there something going on? Now again, this is just a step in the right direction with that transparency. I mean, it's literally eliminated these vague student emails asking if something's wrong by like 95%. It's something that when our learning consultants go and speak in front of classrooms of students, like first day of class in services where they're walking the students through the platform, they talk about this as well. So they're aware of it. You know, it's not something we keep secret, but it definitely opens that level of transparency in regards to what we're trying to accomplish, which is ultimately to have a super stable platform, all stable platforms. Specifically to math, I'll jump over here real quick. This is just a WebAssign generic flyer. If you're on the math side of things, you can take a look at that. Talks a little bit about just the customization, the personalized help. This specifically is in regards to the co-requisites. So this is some really good information that you can dig into in regards to the actual array of products that we have in regards to liberal arts math and statistics. Again, this just gives you some more information on the co-recs and kind of what we've done to develop those platforms around that. And then let's go over to English for a second. And specifically in English, the first document behind your customized campus flyer, and I'm probably going to spend a little bit of time with this when we actually get into the English portion. This is what we call an educator's guide. So these are awesome, and they're actually coming out with these for all of our products moving forward. I think copyrights 2018 and further. And then some of our A-list titles have already had these adapted as well. But a lot of times, like I get in front of faculty and we start talking about change and inertia, and it's like, I don't want to leave my lab because I've been using it for 40 years or whatever it is. We talk about change and we talk about the commitment that we have to not only service and support that change, but these resources and ancillaries that are available to you as an instructor. I've never taught English, so I can't sit there and say, hey, I can consult with you in regards to things that they're doing throughout the Southeast region or that the company recommends, but I can't say, you know what works for me is this. So what this document is like I said, really, really, I love these. And they have them for all of our products. But this talks about basically a 16-week course schedule, talks about the assignments. But then what I really like is when you specifically get into the projects and what's going on. Let me stop here. It talks specifically, and this goes back to another point. A lot of times when I'll get up in front of people, it's like deer in headlights. Like, you want me to do what? There's 5 million different things that we could do in here. I call it like field of dreams, essentially. And luckily with our platforms, a lot of it is more or less deciding what not to use versus what to use because of that course in a box mentality. But what I like about these educators guides is it basically walks through what each activity is inside of the homework platform, what it is, and why it matters. And so when you're just looking at the surface level and we're not digging into specific content or table of contents and things like that, you can say, you know what, for this English, this is, I think, the WYRIC book, these are the different activities that are available to me to assign to my students, and this is how I could see myself using them. So I really, really like these educators guides. So if there's any additional ones you want to explore, obviously we can follow up after, or you can reach out to your local learning consultant and they have access to them. So this is a huge one for the WYRIC content, again, just because it gets into argumentation and all the composition stuff as well. That's that. In addition, in regards to English specifically, and we're going to dig into this live once we go into the platform, there's information in here about our new just-in-time modules that are actually embedded into the MindTap learning path. So basically what these are is an entire module that you as the instructor have the ability to assign to your students, so potentially in a co-rec fashion. And what the just-in-time is basically a diagnostic, which then walks the students through the modules. And again, once we get live into the platform, I'm going to show you how easy it is to customize and assign these things to make sure that you're just adapting to what is relevant to you and your students. And then, let's see, raffle ticket for anyone who can tell me about one I missed, possibly. Did I miss any of those? Oh, I think, okay, so on the English side as well, there's a flyer about Questia, which is our online research database. We're going to talk about that once I'm in specifically into the English platform. Amazing, really helps with the writing side of things. And then also Insight. There's a flyer in there about Insight, which you can see specifically what that is, but again, helps with the writing piece as well. I think I got them all, yeah.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can answer this or I can ask it.
Okay.
Without talking about fees, but
Sure.
you used a term that I don't know what it means. What is a free print rental?
Okay. Yep, so with the subscription model, and this doesn't, we don't have to talk about any price. So with the Cengage Unlimited subscription model, that includes, so for the specific course, say you use, do you teach English? What do you teach specifically?
Biology.
Ooh, nice, okay. So let's say that you teach biology and you assign Cengage materials. The student opts into the subscription model because they're taking maybe college algebra as well, and they say, oh, this is going to save me money. So they get into it. They can actually, because they're in that course, opt for a free print rental.
Do they send it back?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
they have it for the term.
Exactly. Yep.
And they can do that for as many courses.
Correct.
The question that I'm trying to get to
Sure.
is our socioeconomic model of our average student, we cannot make the assumption that they've got internet at home.
Correct.
So if they can get anything in print other than homework.
Yep. Yep. So absolutely. So that's, I kind of call, it's like what a lot of people do now with the old model used to basically be, here's a hardbound biology textbook. I'm going to throw an access code on top of it. And then the student's going to use the access code one semester. That first semester, maybe it's in a new edition. Then they're going to sell their book back to the bookstore. And then that whole technology piece is basically eliminated because they have to, purchase it separately. The model's flipped, and obviously this is across the industry. So now it leads with that pricing on the digital first, and then the print book is actually like the ancillary piece, which is usually tacked on top of the technology. So I reference it kind of as a security blanket, especially like on the hard sciences. Like to me, I'm 15 years removed from college, and like I can't imagine not highlighting and marking up a book, but I mean that's what students are doing now. So this is that security blanket.
Their access stops at the end of the term. There's like a term end date.
Yep.
They can't see it.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot of specific questions about it that we'll go through at the end. But the short version of that is it's really based around a do no harm model. So for example, if a student's taking a 3-semester calculus course, their subscription will last through the end of that course, not necessarily end of that subscription.
That was exactly what.
Perfect. Okay. And we didn't even talk about price. Yes.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
So you negotiate licensing with all the publishers
Mm-hmm.
into this, your unlimited plan, right? They're not all Cengage.
Cengage is the only publisher doing this as of right now.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so this is all, you mentioned Netflix, so Netflix has their own original and created
Correct.
television shows. All of these materials you reference are all Cengage.
Correct. Yep. We are Netflix. The competition is Blockbuster right now. Will they follow suit? Probably. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at a model like this and someone has Hulu and Netflix or whatever it is, it's still about the overall savings. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I was gonna, yeah, same thing, is that this is right now, it's like the Netflix original, right? This is what this is. And then, you know, I also have Amazon, I have Netflix, I think I have another one too, so I have multiple ones to get to what I want overall, but I spend a lot less than what I used to for cable, right? My cable bill used to be astronomical. So, but yeah, and we can talk offline if you'd like to at some point too about it.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so basically we went through, like I said, kind of surface level what unlimited is, got you guys some information on that again, we'll revisit at the end per our capabilities here. We went through all the ancillaries, so I'm gonna actually throw it over to Mark here to actually dig into WebAssign for Math. So we'll dig into the platform. He'll spend about 20 minutes going through the items that were outlined per the agenda, and then we'll flop. I'll do some mind tap for English, and then, like I said, I'll bring it back in. We'll talk about support, resources, implementation. Cool? Any questions as I pass the mic?
That will go on your V-neck. So in your pocket, not on the podium as I did. Made a mess of. Okay, and you should be good.
Hey, hi, can you all, is this working? Okay, perfect. Hi, I'm Mark Santi. I'm the product director for WebAssign. How many of you guys know what WebAssign is or have heard of WebAssign before? Okay, good number. For those of you that haven't, just very quickly, WebAssign is an online learning solution for quantitative courses, specifically math and sciences that use a lot of quantitative material. We were developed out of North Carolina State University several years ago and acquired by Cengage last year. So we've spent almost 20 years building out a learning platform really dedicated to the needs of math and quantitative sciences. So what I wanted to do is kind of walk you guys through a basic overview of the administrative and faculty tools, touch on the student tools. I'll talk about the data and analytics interweaved throughout that because it's kind of hard not to do it that way. But if you guys have questions as I'm going, please feel free to ask. Although we have time at the end for questions, if something pops up, feel free to bring it up at the moment in time. And if anyone on YouTube, I don't know if there's a way they can ask questions, but if you're out of luck. So sorry about that. So this is the WebAssign faculty view. I've already created a course, but one of the hallmarks for WebAssign, we let the faculty members and the course coordinators and the academic administrators decide how you want your courses to work and give you the tools to build out a course that works for your needs. And then push those tools out to adjuncts and others teaching the same courses that you have as well. So I'm going to show you the basics of faculty viewpoint and then show you how the administrative aspect works. So with WebAssign, we let you create the course you're looking for, which is a pretty straightforward process. You can either copy an old course or create a brand new course from scratch. You put in certain parameters like a course name. You decide who your instructor is, how students enroll in the course, and as Angela mentioned, we do integrate with most of the LMS, well, all of the LMSs. You define a start time and an end time for the course itself. So this is the parameters at which a student can access this particular course. And then you select the content that you want to use in WebAssign. So you would select the textbook that you've adopted, certify you're using it, and then click create course, and you've pretty much created the entire course. So it's a very straightforward process to create a single course or to create a master course that you want to share with other adjuncts or other teachers that are teaching the same course. I'm not going to bother saving that. But once you've created that master course, what you really want to do, and where a lot of the focus on the power for faculty lives, is in the ability to create and edit your own assignments. As Angela's going to talk about later today with the implementation portion, we do have implementation services that will help you build out courses and build out assignments to your specifications. But we recognize like a lot of coordinators and a lot of faculty administrators want to tweak things as you go, so we give you the tools to tweak on the fly. So in WebAssign, all of the behavioral settings where a lot of the power comes from is in our assignment templates, which you see here today. We have default templates, but you can edit and create your own if you're interested in doing that. I just want to show you a couple of the settings that you can impact as a faculty member. So we have the ability to categorize things based on particular assignment, and that affects how things weight in the grade book and how assignments get scored. We let you, like almost every other learning system, define how many submissions a student has on any particular problem. If you want them to be able to submit an entire assignment or go question by question, and there are different use cases for each of those. So we give you the ability to do that. We have a Show My Work feature, which lets students upload the work they did to answer their questions, and then you can review and give them partial credit based on that. Skipping ahead, we do have sharing tools for faculty, so if you're team teaching or teaching with other faculty, you can create assignments as a group and edit them as you go. We do have a number of learning tools for students, which I'll show when we get to the student portion, but wanted to let you guys know one of the tools you have at your disposal is when students have access to the hints and help. So depending on what you're trying to achieve as far as outcomes in the course, you may want to say, let students have access to help only after a certain amount of mistakes. So this way you can really gauge, do they understand it first try? Now let me give them some extra help and see if they do better. One of our more popular features is these automatic point adjustments. So you can do this on any assignment or any question. But one of the things that we like about the automatic point adjustments, you can get bonus or penalty points based on certain student performance. This is one of the ways we're trying to attack a common objection that we've heard over the past 20 years, which is students go online, they do their homework, and they do great. And then they go into the test, and they don't do so great. And a lot of that has to deal with what students are actually doing and what they think they're actually learning. So I'm going to touch on this with a couple of additional features as we go through. But my old founder of WebAssign did a lot of research into this and put a lot of support behind tools to help you better gauge your students' knowledge and have them better gauge it as well. So one basic condition, which is the easiest one to show, if you're giving students 5 submission attempts, which is the most common, and students get the answer wrong 1, 2, 3 attempts, and on the 5th attempt, they finally get it right, most systems and WebAssign by default scores it by giving them full credit for that question, which gives students the misconception that, hey, I actually understood what I did, when there's really the background of, but you tried it 4 times before that and got it wrong each time until now. So with this conditional point release, we have the ability to deduct 20% or whatever amount, depending on what you want, every time a student gets it wrong. So if they get it wrong the first time, they can only get 80% of the score for that question. Then it scales down 60%, 40%, 20%. And students start to understand when they see their homework grades, I'm not getting 100 on the homework, I'm actually getting a different grade, even though I got it correct each time. So this is one of the more popular ones a lot of people use, but we do have a bunch of different conditions that can help you affect students' behavior as they're actually learning with WebAssign. We do have the ability to change numerical tolerance if you wanted to do that. We're one of the only systems that do. Most faculty don't tinker with the numerical tolerance, but if you have certain questions or assignments where you're asking students to estimate things, you can go in and decide how strong or lenient you want this grading to be. And again, you could do that at the assignment level or the question level. So with the assignment templates, you really just have to set up your template for how you want a particular subcategory of assignments to work, save it, and then you just apply it to every assignment that you're building thereafter. So it's pretty quick and pretty straightforward to build those things out. Once you've set up your assignment templates, we give you access to the content for the course. So the content's derived from the textbook or resources that you're using in this particular course. So if you were teaching college algebra, you'd have access to this particular college algebra book by Gustafson and Hughes. We'd also give you access to some lower level course material for like developmental math for co-requisite courses, so you can give students just-in-time help, and I'll touch on that as we go through. But when you're building out a WebAssign assignment or using one that our implementation team has built out for you, you can edit them at any point, and we try to give you some helpful statistics so you know how that is working for students. So we're calculating for every question, you'll see these statistical icons, how difficult the question is, and we're using that based as a percent on how many students get it wrong or right the first try, second try, or third try, and then calculating that based on that. The head icon shows you how many students are actually built into that calculation. And then once we have statistically significant information on time on task, we will estimate on average how long each question takes a student to do. This is a new course product, so we actually don't have a lot of usage on this yet. It just rolled out in the spring. So that'll start building out in summer. Question?
Do faculty add questions that are their own creation?
Yes, so we do have an authoring tool for faculty to go in and create their own questions. You can use them for yourself, or you can share them with your colleagues. So you'll notice to add a question to an assignment, it's a pretty straightforward process. You find the one you want, you click on it, and you'll see it starts building out on this side. We also have some other capabilities built in here to help minimize students getting the same assignments. So we have pooling functionality. So you can decide from these 3 questions, I want every student to get one of these 3 questions on their assignment. So it helps randomize the assignment better. It helps actually minimize cheating, and it makes it a lot more secure. Once you update that assignment, it drops you back to your assignment editor. You'll see here's the pool. At any point, you can see what questions are in the pool. And you can override any of the assignment settings at the question level if you wanted to. So some faculty might decide this question is more difficult than another question, so I'm going to give more points for students to get this one right. Or you might want to have a different bonus penalty kind of a setup for that. So once you've created your assignments, you just go ahead and save it. And that assignment is forever yours. We don't ever delete anything at WebAssign. Our architects hate that, but faculty tend to like it. So we save things in folders. You could go back at any point, reuse assignments, or edit them whenever you want to. One nice thing about WebAssign that's kind of unique is you do have the ability to edit assignments that are currently active to students. So if you notice one particular question, you might not like it, a couple of students have already done it, you can pull that off, and the system will allow you to rescore it based on the removal of that question or the addition of another question. So it helps a lot with the pedagogical flow of your course.
Does it rescore the previous attempts?
It will rescore the previous attempts.
Start from there. Override previous attempts.
If you edit an assignment that's in flight, as you're editing it, there's a rescore button, and it gives you the ability to say, yes, rescore it, or no, don't rescore it. Great question. So that's pretty much using WebAssign from that viewpoint. Where does that course go? Yes?
I think it said read or watch next to help.
Yes.
Is that accessibility or was...
Those are help tools. So I'll get into those a little bit when we get to the student view, so you can see how students see what that looks like. Once you schedule your assignments into your courses, actually, let me show you how fairly easy that is to do. Once you've created your assignments, you would schedule them into a course. And WebAssign lets you decide which course you want to schedule into. And I think the one we're using is that one. It'll show you the course schedule based on how you created the course. It shows you the assignment you want to schedule, and then it's a simple drag and drop to the week that you want it scheduled. And you can define the due date for it. Now, WebAssign lets you define different types of due dates depending on how it works best for your course. You can say I want to do on a specific day, like I want to do Tuesday by 9 p.m. and schedule it. or you can make it relative to a class meeting. And this is a feature that's very useful if you have multi-section courses, or if you're building out a master course with a whole bunch of smaller courses underneath it for being taught by other instructors. Because if you do this, and let me just go ahead and do it, you can define, I want to do 10 minutes before Friday's class starts, and schedule it from there. And then that'll be the due date. And I'll show you how that comes into play when I get into like the administrative aspect.
I'm going to interrupt for
Yeah.
a quick second. One of the things I find really beneficial with this and the fact that you can actually schedule in relation to class times is not specifically in this course that Mark built out, but in a lot of our courses we have what we call course packs, where it's basically a preloaded set of assignments that includes pre-lecture, a homework, and then like a post-quiz. I know that happened to me too.
That's not a solid.
Sorry, and I know I'm not on the mic, but anyway, so this gives you the ability to really utilize that surface level pre-lecture assignment in relation to when classes and the actual lecture is taking place. So I know instructors are really fond of that. We have those too.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
You've talked a couple times about creating a master course and then giving it out to other faculty. One question I have is if you've already done that, let's say you're week 4 and you want to make a change, you make a change in the master course, will it permeate to the other instructors?
You have to copy it out. It won't automatically, but it's a one-step process, and I'll actually show you that in a second. So one thing also to point out here, WebAssign does have restrictions, just so you guys know. For any assignment, you can turn it into a testing type assignment by applying certain security restrictions. Password protection, if you're doing a proctored exam in a lab, you can set it to only open a certain IP addresses. You can make a timed assignment if you want to. If you have special needs students that might need extra time, you can go ahead and define that and select which students and how much extra time you want to give them. So this is a lot of the security restrictions. We also have this conditional release feature, which allows you to define dependencies. So this is a way a lot of faculty that use this for co-requisite courses wind up using WebAssign. So you can say, before this particular homework assignment opens, I want students to achieve a certain level of mastery on a co-requisite assignment. And until they achieve that, they won't be able to move forward with any other assignment in the gating feature. You can automatically waive that if you want to keep students on track throughout, or you can waive it for specific students. So I know some faculty do this where they have a course that seats some students that might be considered a co-requisite students and some students that are not. So they blend them into the same course. You can gate assignments and force students that are on a co-requisite track to actually do those assignments first before they can do their 4-credit work. But those that might not be in that cohort, you might want to just flag it and say they don't actually have to go and do these co-requisite assignments before they can do their 4-credit assignments. So it kind of allows for like the blended experience, or if you just want to give students extra help, you could do that. And then we do have a group work feature, which is actually becoming a lot more popular, particularly where you want to get students working on projects in the classroom or outside of the classroom, where you can say, take a certain subset of students, put them into a group, and assign out assignments to that group, which basically means only one of those students has to put the answers into the WebAssign course, and their grades populate down to all of the other students in that group. You can define the groups, or you can have the system define the groups based on certain conditions like performance, or just randomly select them. Okay, any questions on any of that stuff? Cool, thank you. So once you built out, say this is a master course and you want to copy it out to multiple sections, there are a couple of ways. Well, the easiest way to do that is to copy to new sections once you've created that master course. So if you click on copy to new sections, we really want to make this as simple as possible. So you can add as many sections as you need. So let's just say 3. And then you can go through and basically say, this is my master course here. I want to copy it out to, let's call it section 1, section 2, section 3. You select the instructor that's teaching that particular section. So this is a drop-down list of every instructor in your department that has access to WebAssign at your school. So if you're the coordinator or the administrator, you would just find that person that's teaching, select them, and now that's going to give them access rights to this course as the instructor of the course. But you as the administrator also has access to that course. And this particular instructor will not be able to access any of the other courses that they're not teaching. So it kind of restricts it, but makes it simple for you to assign them. You also would set a class meets time. So as I mentioned earlier, if you wanted, that's a long course. Yeah, kids are not gonna like that. You can define when the class meets and then determine a mapping. So you'll see the particular course we're copying from meets Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We can say this course might only meet Tuesdays and Fridays, and you'll see if you use that relative scheduling how we reschedule it for you using some internal logic based on the new course. And you can always reschedule things, as we mentioned earlier. Robert.
You might have already said this, but I might have missed it. Is this operating all outside of the existing LMS technologies you're using?
This is existing out.
Interface, and I know that someone else is going to ask this, how does this interface with Banner?
Yep. So I know there's a portion coming up about the LMS integrations, but the basic answer on this one, you would come in through the LMS and access WebAssign that way through a single sign-on process, but using the tools for faculty, you would be within the WebAssign experience.
Some of those models have been rather clunky up to this point. I'm sure yours is much more elegant.
Wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
I'll show it to you. It is elegant. Robust is what I usually call it.
That's a bad example. So
one of the things while he's pulling that up really quick, so UT Knoxville utilizes WebAssign for
basically all of their math courses, calc and under, and they utilize it in this master copy out capacity. The coordinator, they basically have a WebAssign coordinator who actually builds all of these out, so she has control, especially when it comes to GTAs and adjuncts and things like that. So they utilize this and have a really good experience with the controls that they're able to have on that.
So if I were to hit copy section schedule, what that's going to do is create these new sections, assign them to the faculty that you've assigned them to as the administrator, and then make them fully available. And then the faculty, the adjuncts, or whoever's teaching the individual sections has full control. I'm not going to do that because it's just going to junk up my stuff. But to answer your question earlier, if you wanted to change an assignment or add an assignment, what the easiest way to do that from the master, we have this reschedule assignment option. If you unschedule what you don't want to copy over, the stuff that you had previously done, for the time being, and then you go to copy to new sections, all that's going to do is copy over the assignments that you've just created, not everything else. If you've edited an assignment and want to copy that over, you would just leave that as scheduled and copy it over, and provided the available date hasn't already passed, it will copy it into the new courses. So any questions on any of that?
I know Mark's kind of getting into some of the weeds of some of this functionality. We're going to spend some time talking about the support piece
As well, in regards to syllabus alignment and the resources that you have basically to help do this for you or with you, preferably with you.
So then I wanted to segue quickly into analytics and data, because I know the portion of the requested agenda. In WebAssign, we have 3 different ways for you to look at your students' performance and how they're doing in the course. We have what's called the score view, which is a quick overview of how students are doing on every assignment, which students have actually done the assignments and which haven't. So you can get a quick pulse on where your students are today. This is fully downloadable into Excel, and you can download it as section by section or as all sections at one time. The other viewpoints we have is our gradebook. So this is where you can do some of the statistical analysis, and you make the decisions on what students see when, and which assignment types are weighted differently. And again, the gradebook is fully downloadable as well into Excel or fully exportable. And then we have a new tool which is called Class Insights, which is a different way of looking at the student performance. Instead of looking at it assignment by assignment, what this tool does is aggregate things up to the learning objective across assignments. So you'll be able to see at a glance how your students are performing on particular learning objectives in the class. The way it works, I mentioned a while ago, we're looking at when students get the answer right in the sequence of the assignment versus their final score in this viewpoint. So in this view, we're flagging things where we think students might be struggling. And you, as the faculty, can define those settings yourselves. But you can see in this course, the students are doing great on this particular topic, they're doing not so good on this, and they're doing okay on this one. If you drill into it, you can see which questions are actually associated and why we're coming up with that category. If you drill further, you can see which students got it right, which students did not get it right, and when they got it right, and you can drill down to the student level if you needed to see how individual students are doing. So we're really trying to give you a lot more insight into student performance based on their conceptual understanding versus just on their final score. Okay, any questions on that? Cool.
Clearly, I can't help but interrupt. One thing instructors love about Class Insights is, and the way that I see it utilized a lot is prior to lecture, especially if you're utilizing like a pre-lecture assignment, the instructor's actually able to go in and see the performance like Mark was talking about and cater their lecture to actually where students are struggling. So instead of going in with this, again, traditional regimented plan for the day, you're actually able to go in and say, man, I had 65 out of my 90 students get this wrong on the first attempt. Clearly I need to focus on addition again, or whatever the concept may be.
So to keep on task, I'm going to jump over to the student view so you can get a sense of what the student side looks like. That's WebAssign. Maybe, if I can remember all of the aliases I have, which I can't. All right, so we'll just do it this way. So on the student side, and I'll just go in as a faculty member and masquerade as a student. So you can always see as a student or as a faculty what the student viewpoint looks like. So this is your typical student view for WebAssign. You'll notice across the top there's a little banner that says Flash needs to be installed. That's only because there's a current tool in there that we're pulling out in May and replacing with an HTML5 version, like Angela mentioned earlier, to make it a lot more accessible and a lot more user-friendly. So that'll happen across all of the WebAssign courses in math. But you can see here's my assignments, and if I click on a particular assignment to do that work, this is what it looks like as a student. And you'll see a lot of the questions have different help tools associated with them. Every question has a link to a Read It, which is the recommended content that's associated with this particular question. There's a Watch It, which is a video that'll help students understand how to solve a very similar problem. And then we also have tutorials, which walk students through how to solve a problem on a step-by-step basis, providing them help and tools along the way. Yes?
And the reason I asked that question was because when you answer the question, can faculty create their own questions? They can, but then that's missing. Is that correct?
If you create, that is correct. You wouldn't be able to link to specific sections of the book. We have a team in our Raleigh office that could help you do that, but you, as by default, cannot. You can link to external resources, like YouTube videos or things you might host on campus, but not necessarily deep into the WebAssign content yet. That was a great question. So students would work through their basic assignments that way. One other thing to point out here, we do have what we call the personal study plan. So the way that works, it's a little bit of an adaptive area. So students can go in for each chapter of the content they're working through, take a chapter quiz, and based on their performance, they'll be directed to specific learning tools to help them improve skills and concepts they might need help on. So this would get populated out, and they'd be directed to specific practice quizzes or tutorials based on how they did on the chapter quiz. Last thing to point out here, which you may have noticed, may not have noticed, that Class Insights tool we had for faculty, we also have available to students, and all that does is show them their individual It doesn't show them the full class, obviously. It just shows them their particular work. If they drill into any particular topic that they've worked on that's flagged for them, there will be practice help for them. So they'll be able to go through the practice on that particular skill or concept and work through problems that are associated with that as well. So we're really trying to let students better gauge where, when we go to,
Does doing it that way change their homework grade?
it does not.
So
It's just extra help. So before before exams or quizzes, the good students will come here, take a look at what they have to do, and then they'll see where they need particular practice and practice it.
Good students probably don't need that though. Is that right? I mean,
What's that?
I would imagine the good students aren't still having,
You'd be surprised.
efficiencies right before the test.
Yeah, you're able. So for the class insights, students, you can't. It doesn't affect the students' grades. You can't see it. But that personal study plan, as a faculty member, you can always see which students are actually using it, what they've done, and if you wanted to, make it part of the grade at the end of the course. So it would filter into the grade book if you wanted it to.
So like on the deduction per attempt, I should have asked back then, but you could like maybe let them do it 3 times without the deduction or 2 times without the deduction, then after that start.
Correct.
So it doesn't necessarily have to every time.
That's right. Like you can, and we also have a tool that lets you, I breezed over it, if students get it wrong a certain amount of times, it'll let you re-randomize the question. So they'll get a different value with a different version of the question after a certain amount of wrong attempts, if that's a tool that you want to use.
So you're actually still talking about the same attempt with the same question, how many times they enter it in. Like if they typed, maybe the answer was supposed to be 2x and they typed 2t because they just weren't paying attention. Or maybe it was supposed to be 2t and they typed 2x because they always use x, and then they realize it's wrong, and so we have to make some sort of decision about how important that is to us.
Correct. The system would automatically recognize it as wrong.
But then can they go back and just rework that question on their own, or do I have to allow them access to rework it on their own?
It depends on how it's set up. If it's set up so they have multiple, like 3 or 4 tries at it, they can just go right back in and put in a new answer. Yes?
I know you said that the assignments save forever. Does student data save forever? So like, can I go back and look at courses from the fall of 2016 and see Johnny's grades?
You could. So I'm just about at time, and I think I covered everything else. One other topic that was on the agenda around data and analytics. So I showed you the things that we have available to you as a faculty member that you can pull directly from WebAssign and that you can download. We also have a service in-house that'll help you get regular data points if you needed other data points that are unavailable to you through the system today. So we have a data warehouse team that can put together regular reports that will be delivered to you when and if you need them. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at this particular data viewpoint. If there are things you need that's not available, and we don't have a lot of people that have things that we don't make available, it's just a question to be asked. Cool. Any other questions before I let Angela move on to English? Yes?
These may all be the same platform, so maybe Angela can answer this, but so your uptime, 99%, 100%? Wishful thinking?
It's 99% right now, discounting scheduled maintenance.
Yeah, well, that's.
Yeah, I'll talk about that with Tech Check. You hit every one of the bullet points on the agenda, Mark. Good job.
So is all of this available in all titles, or is there a replacement structure kind of going on?
For math, it's all of this is available in all titles, as well as most of the
Because
quantity.
I didn't remember the ability for like me to share my class with another instructor, but I've not really worked with WebAssign. That's not a class I teach in our campus very often.
Right.
I remember that being a pain, as we had to.
We've made it a lot simpler.
Yeah, I mean, what I saw seemed easy enough. I just remember that being difficult.
Back when I was your rep and you used calculus, student calculus?
Well, yeah.
In the good old days? No.
I just remember that being really tough initially, but that looks simple enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think.
I mean, obviously all the technologies are progressing. I think that like math is always just such a tough one because there's so much that needs to be done. And I wanted to mention too, for those of you out there who didn't get to hear me when I was interrupting Mark, I think one of the big things that Mark touched on was the remediation, and we're going to talk about that as well with the MindTap for English specifically. But I think I saw something recently that it said statistics show that most of the students are actually completing their homework between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. nowadays. And so that on-demand remediation has just been really, really beneficial for students who are emailing you, sometimes me, because I think I'm teaching the course, asking for assistance with something that they've completely been roadblocked by. And so when he talks about the watch it videos and the read it's and things like that and stuff that we're going to look at in the MindTap platform as well, it's really about that on-demand remediation and being able to get the student through what they need to on demand when they're on their schedule. Okay, so let's see. So we went into, I'm going to just X out of WebAssign altogether for now and get back in if we need to. All right, and I'm assuming this timed me out. So yep, before I get an error message and then you say, oh, their platforms don't work, I'll just sign myself back in. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about MindTap specifically for English. I know that I put, like I said, a lot of ancillaries specifically to some of the resources and features to MindTap. For those of you that are teaching, you mentioned biology, so I'm just going to throw this out there, outside of the English or math spectrum, this MindTap platform is available across disciplines. So this will be essentially our flagship technology for other areas that you may be invested in as well. So I've got a couple different MindTaps pulled up, and then also, I don't know if Thad is out there in YouTube world, I'm going to actually pull up Southwest's pause system, where I actually have a, they're using MindTap in their 1010 course, correct, and I'm actually going to pull that up to show you what that looks like inside of eLearn pause, as they call it over there in Southwest world. But specifically what I wanted to show you, and let me get into this one, just working through browsers here. That one I want to spend some time showing you, and this one I probably got timed out of as well. So let me log back into this one. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit, you know, I don't want to get too far into the weeds as far as like the actual integration, but I'll show you how seamless it really is and how it's actually being utilized on campuses similar to yours. I think this is the one. Oh no, I don't want this one. Hold on, I lied. While I'm showing you this, this is the Instructor Resource Center that most of you should have access to. If you don't, let me know and we'll make sure that you get it. This is basically where your one-stop shop, where you would be able to build courses, explore products and things like that, access your courses if by chance they're not integrated into D2L or Brightspace as they try to call it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, I'm just going to kind of platform overview MindTap. Since this is across a lot of disciplines, you're going to see a lot of similarities if you start exploring some products outside of English specifically. But I'm going to dig into that, and this is basically the learning path. So specifically, this is an evergreen developmental English platform that I'm going to look at a little bit. If you notice when you dig into a specific unit, you'll see that it's broken out by chapter. I'm just going to jump into chapter 3 here. And then you'll see an array of activities. And this is what I was talking about with kind of like the deer in headlights in the educator's guide, and why these resources and stuff are really beneficial to you as an instructor looking to potentially make a change, is that this course in a box is customizable, personalizable, and really easy to manage to make it what you want. So even in situations like at Southwest where they're using this for their course, they're able to, like when I come in and I'll do a training, I'm able to work with the instructors to say, you know, what is it that you particularly like focusing on? Do you use YouTube videos in your course? How do we make this your own? So while a lot of times in larger courses we're working off of a master course schedule, there are ways to really let instructors have some of the freedom to really bring in their own flavor into the course very easily. So For example, again, this is a learning path. This is it's basically built off Bloom's taxonomy, if you want to think of it that way. It's introducing the student essentially to the concept. We're going to dig into the reading, which we're going to spend some time in. There are some practice activities, some quizzing yourself, and again, inside of the English platform specifically, there's a ton of different ways to really reach the student. I'm going to jump over, well, actually, I'm going to dig into this one. So let me actually show you, I think in chapter 2 I've got some data in here. Maybe not, maybe it was the paragraph one. Yep, okay. So inside of here, if I go into the process of writing paragraphs, this top level introduction to this concept is presented to the student. So again, it lays it out there pretty quickly. This activity introduces you to some of the key concepts that you're going to learn about in chapter 3. Again, top level introduction to what you're going to be covering. And very basic level assessment. Refer to the image below, answer the question. When faced with the task like cleaning this room, what is your reaction? I groan because I don't know where to start. And then I explain that the smartest people in the world have the messiest bedrooms. That's me. Then you click next. Once you begin cleaning, do you continue till the job is complete? Do you stop at times? I stop and assess, and usually by assess I mean don't finish. And then you go through that really simple, like I said, topic level. The reason I wanted to show you this specific assignment is it's basically called an evaluation assignment. So you as the instructor then have the reporting capabilities of going in, let me see here where I can find this, going to overview, and we'll dig into some of this gradebook functionality. I just wanted to show you specifically with these because I do think a lot of this remediation stuff is important for you all to know, like how to use to actually cater your approach to teaching and concepts because they're always changing. So again, I'm going to go into this assignment that I just completed. And you can actually, you'll see all your students lined out here, and you can click a performance report. So it'll actually dig into analytics specifically for these assignments and these overall overarching concepts that you're particularly introducing to the student. It breaks it down here at the question level, what's going on with the students. And I think this is really nice from a co-rec perspective because you really are trying to supplement a lot of the activities that you're, and services you're really trying to provide your students. And again, it just breaks this down at the course level. So I know that some of the reporting and analytics and stuff we wanted to touch on, I wanted to show you that specific to those top level introductory assignments. And then once we, and let me back up here real quick. So like I said with MindTap being this customizable, personalized experience, course in a box, I'm going to show you ways that you can really add different activities, whether it's regarding the Questia or the Insight or a general YouTube video. We could put this stream right in the middle of this presentation if it was available. But what I like to point out about this really quickly is the ability to edit and hide content. So if you as the instructor go through and basically say, you know, I don't want my students working on writing a paragraph or something like that, you could just simply hide that from students. So again, as you customize and build this course out, you're able to really easily make it your own. I have a lot of instances where instructors, even at the overall level, maybe don't teach things in the order that the book delivers the materials. Maybe they like, I'm gonna just make something up here. If they want to talk about, let's look at something more fun. Writing an essay, that's always fun for students. So let's say that they want to talk about the introduction, the conclusion, and the title before. You know, you can easily, whenever you see this pencil button, not only rewrite this. So a lot of times with like Tennessee eCampus and the way that courses are built out that way, I work with course coordinators on building this out in more of a modular form. And so we've actually gone so far as to rename units models, integrate them into eLearn, and actually make that experience feel like it's really in the same environment for the students. But again, you can reorder this in any way, shape, or form in the learning path and add it to unit locations. And again, just really make it your own. So I wanted to touch on that as far as the ease of customizing and hiding, because a lot of times, especially with MindTap being that course in a box mentality, like I mentioned earlier, you're dealing more with what not to use versus what to use, even though you have the ability to add a lot of your own stuff. We'll dig into that here in a minute. So going back to the MindTap reader specifically, I'm going to jump into chapter 3. And the MindTap reader is basically like an ebook on steroids. And I'm going to talk a lot about the features of the MindTap reader. But some of the things I really like to point out to people specifically is that there is now a MindTap mobile app, which is a free app that students or instructors can download. And for about 2 or 3 semesters, we had the MindTap mobile app that had the ability to have the students access their course. They had access to practice quizzes and flashcards. As of now, 2 semesters ago, I don't even know what month it is, March, so fall of last year, the students now, and this could be good for some of your students that you refer to, have the option of actually downloading the ebook on the mobile app. So if they're in a situation, regardless of maybe their internet access at home, they most likely maybe have a cell phone still. So they would be able to actually have their book downloadable offline, which is really, really great. Yes?
I know you talked about your library, your Cengage.
Yep.
The other product. So,
Well, if the faculty have a book, it's not one of your books that they want to use it. Can that be linked from this? Can the students be using that? Or if we engage you for this product, then we would be limited, and I use that loosely, because what, you get 15,000?
20,000.
You would be limited to those 20,000 books.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that in a sentence. Yeah, they're like limited with 20,000 ebooks. You know,
but yes. So we do have, and I mean, I would have to pull it up specifically, and we could get into, I could get course guides basically pulled up that went by the discipline level, which content had a MindTap with it, for example. We do have some text agnostic MindTap platforms that we have instructors using if they're, like a lot of times I'll have like an instructor at a school who's the author lived there for taught there for 40 years, and they're just married to the content per se, but they really want to use a different homework platform. So I'd have to look and see what disciplines specifically, but we do have some text agnostic platforms.
Architecture was built to really use your product.
Your authored content. Yep.
Doesn't MindTap always come with Questia?
Yes.
Okay, Robert, your sheet explained Questia to you. Questia is a portal to a library with over 100,000 books from various publishers, not just Cengage, and 10 million overall sources. I personally used it in a co-requisite class. So it opens up, it's like a portable library. When you're up in East Tennessee like I am, a lot of students don't have access to good libraries like that. And what I really liked about it was it had refereed sources on it, not all this junk from the internet. And it has a feature of MLA, APA, Turabian for historians, where they can learn to put stuff automatically into the proper documentation style. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's that I right there.
Yeah, we're going to look at Questia specifically for sure.
Because we don't want to confuse the subscription thing you're talking about with what you can get on Questia.
Yep.
So it's like a double portal.
Yep, and I'm going to dig into that a little bit.
If you haven't met him, he's a plant. I brought him with me, just kidding. I did not, I'm just kidding. No, he has used it for sure, and I know like at ETSU, they're really big into the Questia piece as well. We're definitely going to dig into that because it's awesome. So if you haven't heard of Gale, which is one of our companies that we own as well, that is in the library system, it's basically that, which now owns National Geographic as well. So like the breadth of information that is housed alone in this one app that we have over on the right-hand side. We'll get into Questia specifically. Going back to the ebook specifically, obviously you'll notice as I navigate through this, it's a very interactive ebook. It has videos embedded throughout. It's built for mobility, so you'll notice it kind of looks and feels like an iPad or tablet when you're navigating through it. But when I talk about it being basically an ebook on steroids, a lot of the things I specifically like to point out to people are that from an instructor perspective, you again have the little magic pencil button, and you have the ability to really customize this reader and make it something, again, that's entirely your own. So I go back to the Southwest training example. This is where I spend some time working with individual instructors saying, hey, let's go ahead and customize this and make this a little bit more of what you like. Maybe something that you're passionate about, did your dissertation on, or something like that. So for example, if I come up here and I'm on writing the first draft, and again, this is at the instructor level, anywhere where you see this plus button, you have the ability to add any of the following activities actually to be embedded right into the ebook. So a syndication feed, for example, history, they do this day in history, and it auto updates for the students to see what that is. Web video search, I'll actually show you that. If you want a little homework activity built in there, if you just want to source out to a web link, Questia, I'm going to visit that one here in a minute. But let me just do like a web video search, for example. So I'm at, I think, writing a first paragraph. So we've partnered with YouTube in this respect. Shout out to YouTube, live stream. And we have pre-permissioned and vetted videos that you can put right in here. So if I go ahead and put, I'm always like, do I want to do something funny or do I want to do something relatable? But if I do like writing first paragraph, I usually don't type with one hand, paragraph, and I search that, what you'll see is 513,000 videos that have been pulled up for you. Most of the time it's funny when I show this, someone's like, oh, search my handle, I have my own videos, or I've saved a bunch of stuff in here. And you know, I would typically recommend an instructor looks at this, finds a video that's not 50 minutes long. But let's say there's this like little 4-minute video that you've used in the past in class, and you want to pull it into the ebook. So you can say, you know, watch for pop quiz. I don't even know if people give pop quizzes anymore, but I'm going to go with it. And they'll have the introduction of the paragraph, what the video is. You can insert text after, click continue, and that YouTube video is embedded right there into the online reader. So this is something I would say like easy, like again, if you're working off a master course mentality, but you're still trying to give the personalization capabilities, this is something that instructors really seem to receive well and really like making their own. So just wanted to show you how easy it is to do something like that. So yeah, please.
We use Camtasia a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Drop it into P2L. Is there any way to upload your own video?
Yep, so we have an app over here, and I'll graze over these in a little bit just to make sure they're all covered. But basically, our partnership on the video, on the Your Content piece, if I can get this to click over with my resolution. I don't want flashcards, I want more. There we go. Is housed through Kaltura. So we have the partnership with Google Drive, so any actual paper documents and stuff like that that you want to embed, again, into the ebook, into the learning path, however you want to do it, you can do through Google Drive, Kaltura, or what is this guy? iCloud maybe? Or, okay, OneDrive, the cloud. So I don't know. Most people either have used Kaltura, and I don't know if you can convert those from Camtasia to Kaltura. Anyway, we'd have to look at that specifically. But there is a way to upload your own content in there. A lot of people, honestly, the more and more I've worked with people on this, a lot of them just use YouTube to, like, they put their stuff on there, and I guess just accessible from that respect. Speaking of accessibility in a compliance standpoint and in general is the fact that we have ReadSpeak. This is something that when MindTap first launched, however, 9 years ago, I started talking about from a compliance standpoint, like, oh, we have this ReadSpeak feature. But then more and more I talk to students, especially non-traditional students, you know, they've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got a lot of things where they're moving. And this ReadSpeak allows students from a convenience standpoint to listen to the book in their car. They plug in their auxiliary cable when they're driving out to the boondocks and don't have internet. It gives them the ability to put their earbuds in and walk to class across campus. So it really turned into me saying, oh, this is great for compliance, but really it ended up being more, from a student perspective, convenient. And an additional thing I always like to point out are like ESL students or whatever that they maybe can't pronounce the word or know what that word is. They're able to just simply highlight it and they could have that text read to them.
Rewriting.
Or they could just hit the read speak button. This doesn't have to be on or off. I'm just clicking it to get out of the way.
Revising. Revising means read.
So one thing I always like to point out just for funniness is inside of read speak, you have the ability to choose a male or female voice. Recently, which has been added, a male British or male Australian accent as well. I thought that was funny. So maybe by fall there'll be like female Australian. I don't really know what the next desirable one would be. But it makes me think of like Waze, like the Waze app for traffic, like when you can like change it to be like Terry or whatever, Terry's voice or boy band or whatever it is. You have the ability to do that. And another thing I always like to point out when I'm working with students with disability is I put it on like very fast for them. And they're like, can you make it even faster? So that always kind of makes me laugh. So let's hear what this very fast Australian has to say. Let's see if this goes.
Revising. Revising means rethinking and rewriting your first draft, and then making whatever changes, additions, or
You'd be
corrections
surprised
necessary.
though. Yeah. Anyway, so that's an example of that. So again, that read speak functionality is something, like I said, is really cool, really convenient for students, and again, especially your non-traditionals. There are some basic additional functionalities within the MindTap Reader that you'd expect out of most of your ebooks. You can resize it, you can bookmark the pages. You do have the ability to print as many pages as you want. Now again, with pricing, that sometimes is less cost effective anyway. And again, I'll put my little thing down and not walk away. Students today too, I think it's really important to point out the ability, as you're looking at different ebooks, you have the ability to highlight, you have the ability to take notes, which I think you would expect from most ebooks. One thing I always like to point out to instructors is you have the ability to share highlights or notes. So if you're big into customizing the ebook like we talked about, you can actually go ahead and easily share those with a student. If you disagree with a concept or something that's being discussed, you can do that. And again, just gives the ability to the student to do this. What this then does is essentially build the student their own study guide. And again, we'll touch on these different specific apps without spending a ton of time. So inside of the Study Hub, the students have the ability to create their own study guides. But what I was doing when I was actually working throughout the reader itself was taking these notes and highlights and making an outline for myself. So you'll see here, and one of the things I love about this is that these are printable. So as students are building out their own outlines in MindTap, they're essentially making study guides and outlines that they're able to reference and pass over. And then again, you can click right into that and go to the topic in the book. So if I go to this one, I went to my highlight, I can refer to that there. And those do transfer into that mobile app as well, which is really cool. And again, they can print those. So I wanted to point that out about the ebook. Oh, this is a really good one too. Last feature and benefit for you all on this. The partnership here with Merriam-Webster's Dictionary. I think this is really important to point out, especially when we're talking about English adoptions. So when I talk to instructors, and ironically, it's usually outside of the English realm where this topic comes up, but if a student, statistically they say if a student doesn't understand a word in the first 2 sentences of a paragraph, they disengage with the content. So they either feel like because it's presented that early, that it's dumb that they don't know it. Again, we could be dealing with ESL students as well. And what I really like about this, and I always like to point out to people, is if a student doesn't know a specific word, so let's say effective, they can actually highlight that word. So typically, in the good old days, well, actually, we didn't have this in the good old days. But anyway, a student would say, I don't know what the word effective is. They copy it. They open up a new browser window. They're going to go to dictionary.com or whatever it is, or put it in the Google search bar. What does effective mean? Then they're going to look up the definition. Well, in the meantime, they're going to get a notification on Facebook. They're going to be watching cats chase flashlights on YouTube. And they've entirely disengaged from the reading, which was their original intention. What this affords the ability to do is actually pull up this dictionary partnership right within the e-reader. And again, I think this is something that people kind of graze over sometimes, like, oh, we have this partnership. But I really like to point out, specifically in certain subject areas, that the student doesn't have to leave the center of engagement and where they're actually trying to get their work done. And I think it's really important to say, all right, effective. I know what that means. And then continue on engaging with the content. So it's all about keeping them in that platform, the similar way that you guys try to keep your students inside of that eLearn platform as well. Any questions about the reader? You guys are welcome to download the MindTap mobile app as well if you want to take a look at that. Again, it's free, and any of that content you put in your instructor resource center can be looked at. Last thing I'm going to touch on specifically to the educator's guide that I specifically provided for you all. Again, this is the WYRIC Steps to Writing Well with Additional Readings. While this is a comp book, this Just-in-Time Plus is on one of the flyers that I put in front of you guys. And again, this touches on that diagnostic piece that I really like for the co-rec. And again, it's pretty self-explanatory once you look at it, and you're able to go in and create a course, or we can put one in your account for you if you'd like to look a little bit deeper into that. But again, you're able to just go through as a student and complete these specific assignments in regards to all these different topics, which are also outlined on the Just-in-Time flyer as well. So again, I really like this. I want to point it out. This is in all of our composition texts and literature and MindTaps. And so take some time to look at the Just-in-Time Plus. I think you're really going to be impressed with how that functionality works. And you'll see at the end, there's a post-test that talks about. Again, you as the instructor easily have the abilities to remove or hide certain areas that you may see as irrelevant, specifically to your learning objectives or goals. I don't really know what one would be. Let's say understanding rhetoric or something like that. And again, you have the ability to customize and personalize this out of the gate. The two other things I wanted to talk about really quickly were Questia and then some of the data and analytics. So as was mentioned earlier, over here in your array of Mind apps, as they're called, we have this link to Questia, which as mentioned is, oh, why is that linking to me? Oh, I know, I want to use the other one. This one's already linked. Okay, so inside of Questia, again, you have access, and I'll pull up here basically like a walkthrough / overview of what Questia is. But again, supplemented by our Gale library database, and has access to periodicals and articles and tons and tons of stuff. Of course, this is happening. Let me do this. Get out of here, go back into the course. And then I'm going to show you specifically, did you have a question? Oh, sorry, I thought I had a question. Specifically how you can actually embed these Questia activities into MindTap either through the ebook or through the learning path itself. I might have to have you get up and use your course if I can't get this to load here, but I think it is. While that's loading, I'll kind of just breeze through some of these. Obviously, search functionality. This gives you the ability, since the MindTap reader is optimized for mobility. Okay, we're back. And we're back. Okay, so again, Questia, online library and research paper writing resource. If you just click on this, take a tour, obviously this gives you a pretty high-level idea of what's going on. So it offers sources all through our Gale library database. Most of these are peer-reviewed, and they have tons and tons of subject matter that you can pull from as well. The Writing Center was talked about specifically. research tools, and things like that. Let me actually just do an example here. So if I go in to search something, I don't know, I'm just going to do like Martin Luther King Jr. because that one's usually, I do a search on that, and basically it's pulling up 27,638 results based on that search that me as student is potentially going to be doing a paper on. You'll see here that it is broken down to books, academic journals, magazines, newspapers, and encyclopedias. And again, gives you as a student the ability to resource any of these within. So you can read now, you can actually go into it. Is there anything else specific? I was going to show how to add one to MindTap, but.
Well, you could go to a book and just show them how you can set it up as a project. Take you about 2 seconds.
So if you go into, let's do this. Are you talking about like actually assigning the Questia activity?
No, just show them how you can create a project.
Like saving it to the active project? Okay.
How
Yes.
easy it is.
Yep. So obviously you have the ability here, like you can save this. It'll source the document for the student, and it also works with them on how to do the sourcing through the English guidelines as well. But this gives you all that information inside of there, and then also additional information below. When I talked about how easy it is to add something like that in here, we talked about adding content into the actual MindTap reader. But if you as the instructor are looking at embedding it just inside of the learning path, for example, so let's say on improving writing, I'm going to go ahead and assign some sort of project or something it is. You can do the same thing that we did inside of the ebook or the MindTap reader, where you're adding an activity. And you'll see here that I'm going to go down to Questia. That's where that My Content is, by the way, if you want to add that. And it's going to actually pull up that database where you can then search the article or something that it is. So again, this is you as the instructor wanting to assign something specifically from Questia or assign a project. I can actually pull up this database and add specific articles, journals, or periodicals to the actual learning path itself, the same way I would with the YouTube video that we talked about earlier. So you'll see there's this little add to MindTap video. You could actually just add a link to Questia in general. Let's say I'm going to write something on stress in the brain. I'm just going to click on one of these that's here. And you'll see here that you can save it to the active project. Obviously, there's a ton of different resources here. Or again, you can add it to MindTap. It asks you to verify. You can put whatever it is that you want to call it here and save. So again, you have the ability to add this content right into the actual learning path itself or ebook. Yeah? What? Okay, perfect. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about just really quickly, and I will show you in the quickest version possible. This is where I talked about our integrated content. So this is actually a 1010 course at Southwest. Specifically, you'll notice as they break out the course, they have what we call deep links or actual links to assignments and readings and other resources embedded right inside of eLearn. The process itself is done very easily through Course Builder. So most instructors that I've worked with in the past on this usually build their stuff right out of the content area. But inside of Edit Course and Course Builder, you'll notice that these modules are created. You can do them here, you can do them in the content area, either or, tomato, tomato. But what you essentially do is drag and drop the Cengage logo into that module. You'll see this is like all the content that's used at Southwest, for example. You pull up the content that's linked, and then you'll see where you can actually bring in different chapters, different assignments. You can expand these out. And you'll notice the ability, if it's a graded assignment, for example, to add a column to the gradebook. So it does offer automatic grade return. You don't have to go in and push a sync button or anything like that. It provides that automatic grade return based on how you build it out. Yes?
Might be a good time to jump forward just a little bit
Sure.
if you don't mind. I want to make sure we cover this.
Yep.
It's a good segue into, from a time when college says yes,
Mm-hmm.
let's do this. What is your academic affairs and IT people, to get this implemented, get faculty trained, and before students start registering learning. What does that timeline look like?
Sure. So our service and support is definitely one thing that I think we as a company hang our hat on. I know some of you in here that have worked with your learning consultants locally and things like that can attest to this. So let me talk a little bit about on campus and what we do with you as the instructor. So we come in, you guys say, man, Angela was amazing. I want to use all Cengage products. Where do I sign? Or whatever it is. After that point, obviously we work with you on figuring out your time frame. So if you're going to be utilizing this for fall, for example, we'll work with either you as the individual instructor or the coordinator if we're working in a master course situation, and try to set up a time frame to basically get people up and running with accounts. That's usually right away. I would say, I don't know, 10 times out of 10, if we're actually doing a presentation on a campus, everyone in that room will have an account, will have a course loaded into their account that they can actually leave with, play with, whatever it is as they're reviewing content. After that's done, so you have your local learning consultant. You also have me in a local capacity and then me at a regional level that works with you to actually administer the on-campus training. So the me at the local level works with the LMS admin on campus. I have relationships with all of them to make sure that if we're integrating, which most Tennessee schools do, that everything's up and running, which I can already tell you it is at all the campuses, to make sure that our building block is enabled. And then we'll work with you to basically either one-on-one to set up a master course. I mean, and it's case by case. I mean, if we're looking at a 10-10 co-rec course and we're working with one coordinator, we work with that one person on building that out. And then we talk about a training plan. So I'll use a real life example. At Southwest, for example, I work with 3 different instructors / coordinators to get the master course built out, customized to their liking. And then we actually do an in-person training, usually in the evening because it's a lot of adjuncts. We'll bring in dinner, we'll sit down, we'll go through the actual master course, and then as the trainings progress, we can dive as deep into that actual platform as we like. So when we first started doing MindTap at Southwest, we went in, reviewed the master course, talked about basic functionality, and then as we've progressed through trainings every semester, before every semester, we've then been able to kind of dig a little bit further into what the instructors are wanting to do, whether it be customize it and things like that. We also have a person, and this is definitely unique to Cengage, called a digital support specialist. And you've maybe worked with Sally in the past, is it?
No, actually we work with Michael as well.
Work with Michael, okay. So Michael's his local learning consultant that calls on Northeast State, super hands-on. You guys have Mandy, Ben, Jen, or Michael, or Nicole if you're in Memphis. And
Michael's an English teacher, and that's why he's perfect.
yeah, Michael is by trade, and he'll make sure you know it. He's great. But you also have a digital success specialist, okay? So this person is specifically assigned to your institution. They sit at a desk in Independence, Kentucky. It's all local. And they are actually available 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, specifically for instructor support. So a lot of times people may come in and be like, use this technology, it's the greatest thing in the world. And you're like, okay, I'll do it. And then you kind of feel like you're left high and dry, okay? Not only do you have your local team, myself, things like that to actually facilitate and implement the technology, you have this person, like I said, that sits at a desk and responds to emails and picks up the phone if you need help. I affectionately call them like tech support for settings. So if we walk out of a training, and this is a great, going back to your question, if we walk out of a training and we've just sat in front of 20 instructors and adjuncts, and I just went through all this stuff on Questia and all these 500 different things that you can do inside of MindTap, they walk out of there and they're like, a week later, how did I adjust the settings? Or how do I apply a numerical tolerance or whatever it is? You have the ability to call this person or email them and say, hey, Danielle, I don't remember what Angela said about setting numerical tolerance on this math assignment. Can you walk me through that? You could call Danielle and say, hey, we're about to get wiped by a hailstorm or tornado here in Nashville. We're not going to have classes tomorrow. Can you push all my due dates back a week? And she can do that for you. So it's as...
Most of this is all great for content working effectively, but a lot of the problems happen. I know Pollyanna's here.
Yep.
In the technical side,
Yep.
interfacing with all of the other, software programs that we have, and so I didn't actually hear a time frame for.
I mean, I would say it just depends on the situation, to be honest with you. I mean, there's so many different dynamics that go into it. If in my head, I'm walking out of here thinking, okay, I'm going to have an English 1010 co-rec. I'm probably going to work with a coordinator on building out a master course. We're probably going to deploy that then to copy that out to other instructors. We're probably going to have to do an on-campus training. The other thing that we do are virtual trainings as well. So I talked about Tennessee eCampus. I mean, there's people teaching all over the place. And I work with Shelley on this respect as well in different courses. We'll just jump online and do like a virtual training if we need to. I've done virtual office hours, and we can do that across the spectrum as well.
Do you deploy a team that will come and work with all?
Absolutely.
So just theoretically, we say fiscal year begins July 1.
Mm-hmm.
We have students coming to campus approximately 8 weeks after that.
Yep.
Is that realistic?
Robert, probably, I don't know if you can do it by fall, because here's what you have to do. First of all, before the Cengage people ever show up, you've got to have faculty buy-in. So the dean and coordinator.
Well, this is all theoretical. Yeah. This is if everybody says what she just said, oh, we loved her and we're my son.
Yeah. But no, let me say this. Once you get into it, there's a whole piece that has nothing to do with Cengage. Because faculty don't like anything shoved down their throat. First thing they're going to say, you come in with something like this, is what? You want to do this, blah, blah, blah. So what I did was meet with the full-time faculty. We had buy-in. Then what I did was bring in Cengage for the first round where we trained all the full-time. Then with the full-time, we met with the adjunct faculty, assigned mentors and faculty to each particular adjunct person, so they taught it themselves, and the full-time really learned it. So I would say overall it took 5 or 6 months. I actually, 3 years ago, ran into Michael Weldon who showed me this, and what we did is in January is when I started working on it, and we had it up in fall, I think, 2015. So
yeah, I mean, I think logistically, like I said, it's going to vary institution to institution.
I mean, I could stand up here and say, I mean, if you said yes right now, I want this for fall, I mean, we could start doing trainings in May before people left campus for a fall adoption, essentially on getting familiar with the platform. If we're looking at individual choice or something like that, giving them time to build their course and get familiar with the platform, and then come back in, I mean, I would typically say my July 11th through the end of August is all on-campus trainings. We're getting everybody up and running. We're doing virtual trainings. We're working through that. Question?
Yeah. So I'm less worried about the faculty access.
Mm-hmm.
More worried about the student access.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to the subscription.
Sure.
A lot of times there's lag time, and so a lot of companies do like a temporary
Yep.
code or temporary. Do you have something like
Yeah,
that?
so we were the first ones to do this actually. So we have a grace period. It's 14 days. So that typically covers the 2 weeks if for financial aid purposes if they're waiting on their checks. So yes, we have a 14-day grace period. That can be extended by myself or your local learning consultant if necessary in certain situations. One thing I always like to point out too is, I mean, I would say probably a couple dozen times I've run into a situation where I'm working with an individual faculty member and they're like, hey, I've got a couple students that just are having a really tough time. Provide me with 5 hardship access codes, whatever it is. I just send those to you and let you handle that at your discretion.
When do they open? Because I know a lot of times I always like those students who get the book before classes start.
Yep.
Have looked at it. So one of the issues sometimes with access codes is when you open it.
Yep.
That 14-day grace period.
So it usually starts on the first day that you set as the course start date. What I typically do in situations where we're dealing with an instructor, because we have platforms that potentially want to do like a pre-course diagnostic or something like that, and I would just work with you and say, when do you want to start this course date? And you would say 2 weeks before classes actually start, and I'll say, okay, we're going to implement a 4-week grace period for this particular course. Yep, absolutely. I do that often. Yes.
So without saying any numbers.
Yep.
When we're talking about training, is that part of the adoption process or is it a separate pricing without numbers?
So I would say all the pricing stuff's worked out way on the front end. So I guess our next presentation is when we would talk about that. That is all taken care of during like the sales process of things. The subscription that we talked about is just blanket, like that's what's being released across the nation for students as an option. But do know that if a student, for example, is only taking a course that's using one piece of Cengage content and they see, well, I'm not really saving money by doing the subscription, they can still pay for that one specific course materials if it's under that number. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we would either, I would say we would come in, you would have the price worked out before we even did anything really in front of the faculty, if I was working with you as a coordinator.
So I would say that as part of the adoption process, we include our training as part of that adoption process and the adoption of our materials.
Yeah. So by the time we actually are in front of faculty doing the training, they will actually have personalized student getting started guides that has the registration process, the walkthrough, the pricing, the purchasing options all in front of them. And usually we would provide that electronically. You post it in eLearn as well.
So were you asking, like, is there a separate charge for training outside? Yes. Yes.
No. Oh,
it's
God, no.
In our adoption process.
Okay.
Exactly what I meant.
Okay, I was like, I cost, no, I don't, maybe a hug, I don't know, anyway.
No, it's all part of the overall pricing and adoption process.
Yes, absolutely, yes. It's not like a consult fee. Perfect, and it keeps me employed, so no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so really quick, going back to service and support so that we can wrap up and get into any specific questions. I think we've done a really good job kind of answering throughout. We talked about the tech check. I just wanted to point that out, and I will follow up with everybody in this room and everybody online to make sure you have access to see this. This shows all the different platforms. If I go into MindTap specifically, again, you can see where this is, the different key on here. One thing I usually point out, if there's planned maintenance, that will be on there. You can see where it is and dig into the live platform itself. Last thing I will touch on really quickly is our training resources website. Again, this is amazing. If you're looking at something and don't feel like calling your digital solutions person, whatever it is, we have a huge, huge repository of platform-specific training that actually digs even into the LMS level. So I would say the majority of the folks I work with in Tennessee, after we finish with a formal training or we spend some time together online, we will dig into some of the instructor or student resources specifically. And one thing I always point out to people here is that there are these little snippet videos that are usually under 5 minutes long. If there's something, creating a course in D2L, I want to make sure I know how to do that. I make sure, and this is just public, so you could go there when you leave here. This is out there for you from an instructor guide perspective, video trainings, and again, there are also really great student resources on here as well. And I know I'm going to touch on the students a little bit more because you mentioned this. I mean, here's a student guide to the MindTap mobile app. There's, again, specific trainings on registration and login. Typically, we'll actually customize those if we're going through your campus learning management system. I work with the admin to get test credentials or whatever it is and go in and build that out. We have guides if you're dealing with an inclusive access adoption. And let me show you this real quick.
Did you get the answer that you were looking for on the training? I mean, basically, we can get there immediately, but it's kind of up to you and the institution.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have fall adoptions that we are winning that basically we're going to be doing trainings in May. So I encourage people to do some sort of initial training in May, if possible, to herd the cats, because I think it's important to get that in front of people as early as possible and get them familiar, especially if they were using another platform. Another service that the DSS, or the digital support person that we talked about, does is syllabus alignment. So if you are using a competitive product or something like that right now, and even just for fun, or maybe next steps, if you want to reach out and say, hey, this is my syllabus, can you find some content that's aligned to this, build something out for me, they actually will correlate and do that stuff for you as well. So the process, like I said, is as hand-holding or not as you want. And again, it's going to be adoption by adoption, institution by institution, department by department, depending on just what the different external factors are. But I would definitely like go to bat a million times, regardless of anything, and say that you will feel entirely supported, your entire faculty will feel supported, and your students will feel supported using this platform.
So we're at a dead stop.
Yep.
Minutes, so
Let's do.
Questions
Questions from the panel?
Like I said, I think we've done a really good job kind of back and forthing. I wanted to do like these raffle games, and I had all these prizes, but we'll do that next time when we present together. Because I don't want to have an unfair advantage with my cool backpacks.
Oh, but you should.
Come see me on the go.
Well, actually, we can't accept.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. If I come to your campus and do the training.
It's funny, actually, I had these little like screen cleaners, like they were just like Cengage Unlimited screen cleaners. I'm like, oh, these will be great. The price is right on them. I was like, well, I guess I won't be handing these out today. So we'll deal with that. And like I said, I think too, we'll get into anything specific. I think we've kind of gone back and forth, but the trainings and the things like that, like we try to make it as enticing and exciting for the faculty as possible. I know that we deal with situations where it's really hard for you guys to mandate that people come to campus outside of like their contractual time. So, we'll raffle off a gas card or something just to entice them to come, feed them, get them there, and like I said, make it as good of an experience as possible. What do you got for me? Anything you didn't see that we could either follow up on, or it was kind of a lot, and you're going home with a lot? Does everyone want to schedule trainings with me today? Just kidding. You guys are good. You're already using our stuff. No,
No, I was just saying, that's a hard sell, isn't it?
What one?
You're training with me today?
Yeah. Fine, come see me. No, I mean, it's great. Like I said, I'll make sure everybody follows up with you at the local level. Make sure you have all the information you need. I appreciate you guys coming and taking the time out of your haily, rainy day. Hopefully everyone can make it home safe. And everybody out there in YouTube world, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks, guys. Wait, we got to clap now.